fun. We had a little bit of a alien deception attack last week. Jammed our PC from working. So anyway, so we are actually going to just redo the study. So we might end up having to do a little bit next week, as y'all know, but to the people who are watching. So basically what I've done is I've compiled some information on, what does the Bible have to say about extraterrestrials? What are they? Where do they come from? And in my opinion, they're fallen angels masquerading as that. So the title of this teaching, I would call it, ET, Messengers of Deception. So last week, I kind of ran through a lot of this, so we're not going to do that if it takes two Wednesdays or whatever. One thing I wanted to start off with is, why is this relevant? People are like, well, why? Okay, I don't believe in aliens, so why would I even need to Okay, that's a great question. Glad you asked. Well, amongst the millennials and the Gen Zers now, a lot of them in droves are leaving evolution. And y'all know, those of you who are older know what I mean by Darwinian evolution. We, came from a primordial soup. Of course, they can never explain where that came from, the Big Bang, blah, blah, blah. The apes came along, then we formed an ape. Well, they're leaving that because the math is just not mathing. It's just, it doesn't work. So the big theory now that's been propagated is really started in the 90s, and we'll probably get into that next week, was that the aliens, in air quotes, when they channel these people, say that they are progenitors, that they created all life, yada, yada, yada. Well, that makes a little bit more sense if you're an unbeliever, because you don't have to be Dr. Michio Kaku, and he's a brilliant-minded physicist to understand. Well, listen, the math just is not working with evolution. So they're trying to explain the origins of man, and that's the easiest way to do it. Is say, well, okay, we were seeded by an extraterrestrial race. Okay, well, then we follow that to its logical conclusion. Okay, well, who created them? Okay, we don't have an answer, and then we keep going. Well, where did the universe itself even come from? Where did the space dust, the molecules, the actual dimension of space-time even come from? They do not have an answer. Einstein called it the uncaused first cause, which is, we know who, church? The Lord Himself. So, why is this important? Because a lot of the younger generation are really believing this. And we had that disclosure, the soft disclosure, when was that? Was that 22 or was that 23? Or was it? Yeah, it was first. 23. I think it was 23. Nobody rioted. They didn't start burning the streets down in Philadelphia over that. Most people, when you pull them, they go, okay, yeah, so what? We believe they're here. Why don't they just show up? Nobody cares. That's what they wanted. That's why they've been, getting us to this point. So when you get on the comments and you really start reading, I can tell you, that's a great place to really figure out what the average person thinks, is read the Instagram comments. People really believe this. They really believe it, hook, line, and sinker, that they visited the Aztecs, they visited the Mayans, they visited the Babylonians, all the way back. They have stories of that, and people really believe this. So you got Steven Spielberg bringing out his movie, Day of Disclosure. I think that comes out in June or July of this year. So I watched the trailer and I was like, all right, I gotta go see this, because they're planning something in the next year and a half, maybe even this year. And it's got a nun sitting there talking to one of the young girls there at the school, saying, well, the universe is so big. Why wouldn't God create other life out there? They're propagating this. And then Trump just 2 weeks ago, maybe right at 2 weeks ago, our president of the United States, this is not a movie, made some statements that he's declassifying all the documentation on the UAPs. For those that don't know what that means, that's unidentified aerial phenomenon. And he said he's going to declassify what we have for extraterrestrial biologic specimens and crafts. No, everybody's like, well, great. That's people believe that now. So I just wanted to touch a little bit on how complex interstellar travel is, and I'm sorry that keeps doing that. Let me do this really fast so I can turn that.
While you're doing that, Obama just said last week that extraterrestrials are real.
Oh, really? See, that's new.
What?
The mic. Okay, so I can repeat. So, Pastor Lee just said, I didn't know that. That Obama just admitted that extraterrestrials are real in his opinion. So think about the timing. we got all the geopolitics stuff happening, Bible prophecy unfolding, and now all of a sudden they're just sitting here going, hey, why don't we just blow the lid off the whole ET thing? It's not coincidence, folks. This is what I believe, in my opinion, and then we'll get into this, is the coming great deception that John warned about. Jesus said, how many times? Take heed that no man deceive you. He said, many false Christs will rise in my name, leading many astray. And then he goes on, he says something really interesting. He says, if they say that he's in the secret rooms, do not go. And I was driving down the road the other day and I was like, wow, wait a second. That kind of is like almost a reference to like cults. Like these teachers in these secret rooms, like the Masons and the Illuminati and all of them, they all meet in where? In clandestine locations. They look at any Mason lodge, you can't see in there. That's what he was talking about in the secret rooms. They're going to claim to be God. And then if we get time, we will get into what some of the alien, again, air quotes, the aliens do say to people, and you'll see it is the same lie from the garden. So all I wanted to do with this study was give y'all a little bit of some tools. When you got a neighbor or something, they want to talk about this, you can be like, well, great, okay, well, what about interstellar travel? If you ever actually looking into that, and aliens, if they were real, and again, that's the sake of argument, because this is more kind of a discussion tonight, they're still bound by the same laws of physics that we are. Even if they had advanced technology, okay, where did they come from? Where did they get it from? How did they, there's no answer to that. It's just a convenient way to live for yourself, because there's going to be no military tribunal by some tall aliens judging me for how I live my life, because they've, even by their own words, it's an experiment to them. So, yeah, I can go out and do whatever I want. But there's no judgment. And what does the Bible say? To the point of once for all men to die, and then what? The judgment. So this is that's why the New Agers love the alien thing, because there's no higher standard to be held to. So anyway, let's get a little bit into this.
Can I ask you a question
Sure.
before you go on?
Yeah, go ahead.
So when you're starting to get into all the math, before you get into the math, because you just made a comment that, and I never thought about this, so you made me think about this. So you're saying that they are subject to our...
Yes.
What would you say?
Our actual physical laws. We know from physics there are actual laws that just cannot be broken.
They're not made by man.
They're made by the Creator, the uncaused first cause, the Lord Himself.
Okay, so how do we know they're not subject to our laws? Before you get into math.
Well, that's interesting, because I was thinking about that too. And the way they'll get around that is they'll say, well, they got slip wave technology. And don't ask me to really explain that. I've looked at it on the periphery. It's very... you're getting into like high gravitational fields, which is true. That's real science. That's physics. We do know that. Wormholes and things like that. Okay, well, if that's the case, then they're using a different physics than we know of. And sure, somebody, I guess, could debate you on that. And then my counter argument would be, okay, well, then where are they? Why do they operate in secret? Well, why are they not intervening in the potential World War III we have now? Why didn't they stop any of the African genocides in the late 80s and early 90s? Why don't they do something about the Mexican drug cartels? Fix inflation, lower my gas prices, something. Where are they? Nowhere to be found. Nowhere to be found. So we're going to get into that. That's a great question. So everybody knows who Albert Einstein is. I think he needs no introduction. Now, for the sake of argument, everybody remember, Albert Einstein was not a believer. To my knowledge, he was an atheist and an agnostic at best. He did come down to the end of his life believing that the universe was intelligently created and designed. Now, he never would say that it was God, that it was the Lord Jesus Christ, or anything like that, but he did say, and I'll give him credit for that, he did look at the math. Him and Newton, probably some of the two most brilliant men of art ever. You could maybe put Pythagoras in there too as well. He was a phenomenal mathematician. And, oh yeah, go ahead.
Go line by line, because you know who Albert Einstein is.
Well, that's what we're explaining.
But You'll be surprised how many people don't know anything.
So Albert Einstein, I don't know, y'all know,
So just
he
keep
worked
your-
on the nuclear arms race when it was us versus, in World War II. We knew the Nazis were working on one. I don't know about Japan. I don't know if we knew. I don't think they had any plans for that, but we knew Hitler was working on that. So Albert Einstein, Oppenheimer, and all of them were working on the nuclear arms race back then. They were, especially Einstein, at the turn of the century there, one of the most brilliant men to have ever lived. He came up with the theory of special relativity, which we're going to touch on, nuclear physics, all that, and then he's the one that, when he started coming down into his life, when he was looking at just the math alone and the complexities of the universe itself, he was even like, okay, this isn't random. It wasn't like, even Einstein even said himself that, well, matter cannot come from nothing. Like, something created the matter. Well, what that something was what he coined the term, the uncaused first cause. I'm not sure if he coined it, but that was the term he liked to use. Well, that uncaused first cause is the Lord himself. He was uncaused himself. He had no beginning, he had no ending. Nobody spoke him into existence. He spoke the universe into existence. He set the laws of physics in place. And then as the book of Daniel prophesied, and I believe, we're getting down not too far in the future from 1905, Israel becomes a nation. Right after World War II, and Daniel says what? In the last days, men will be going to and fro, and knowledge will increase. If you look at our knowledge and our technology from 1905 on, it was just exponential growth. Rocketry within what? A little less than 60 years, we were putting men on the moon.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just crazy how fast. Mm-hmm. And that's another thing I'll touch on, we probably won't get to tonight, so we will next week, is why their origin story changed. The more we learned about technology. Yeah, Paul.
Well, in the beginning, at this time, they didn't even believe in the Big Bang Theory. Back then, it was the universe had always existed. And matter of fact, I'm trying to think there was a monk who came up with originally the Big Bang Theory years before, like a couple centuries ago.
Interesting. I actually didn't know that.
It was poo-pooed, but now because it's Genesis.
Right.
You know what I mean?
God spoke in a book.
Yeah, it's like, you don't want to admit that Big Bang Theory is basically a different riff on.
It's a secular version of God himself speaking it into existence, right? Oh, Jeff, something more? Okay.
That was another reason why Darwinian evolution has started to fade, because of the time limit of the universe. I mean, once you figure out that it's not finite, that it's not infinite, that it's actually finite, then you're now you have a time frame, and not only do you have a time frame for the whole universe, but now you also have a time frame for the Earth itself.
Right.
And so the odds, when you have this limitless amount of time, then sure, you just shake that can long enough and maybe something will come out. But when you can only shake it for 10 minutes, you're not going to get anything.
Right, and they believe now, I was watching some stuff on physics, then they believe the Earth, is not finite. They believe it's actually just cylindrical. So it's just basically a mass, of course that's layman's way to put it, but it just goes in just a circle, that's it. I mean, yeah, it's big.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so anyway, so we got on Einstein there for a minute. So 1905, Albert Einstein, special relativity. He established that nothing with mass can reach or exceed the speed of light. And I think that's interesting because people that have claimed to come in contact with these ETs and things like that, notice they never show you the technology. They never tell you how they actually broke the actual laws of physics in the universe to actually do that. Even if I had a craft this big, I mean, that has mass. If it was big enough for me to get in or put Colton in and launch him at the speed, we couldn't even create enough energy to do that. So notice that's another thing. When you really start to look at hey, Robbie, come here. See if you can turn this on, the timer. So when you really start to look at it, but notice they never show you the technology. They never told you how they did that. They just, back then, people didn't know any better, and they were like, okay, well, that seems plausible. Till, obviously we get on, as the decades roll on and realize, well, wait a second, Einstein, this isn't even possible. How are you even even gonna do that? I can't remember what light speed was now, Robbie. How many? How fast is it now?
186,000 miles per second.
Per second.
Yeah, 186,000 miles per second. So that's what I'm saying. When you talk to people that believe this, challenge them on that. That's really what I want to do at this point in the study, is give you guys some tools. Be like, okay, I understand why you believe this, but answer these questions. How did they even what is this?
Yeah,
What do I gotta do?
the past everything.
I think that's it. Is that it?
You can re-enter it.
Oh, I think that's it, right? Yeah, I was kind of trying to keep the phone from turning off.
Maybe that's not it.
All right, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, because I need my notes anyway.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. I was just trying to save y'all some headache, me having to constantly tap it. So anyway, so we established that nothing with mass can reach the speed of light. That is proven. That is scientific fact. That's not from me. Hey, Edmund, that is from Albert Einstein himself. So.
Real quick,
Sure.
didn't the Higgs boson, wasn't that part of that, where they actually confirmed it?
Yes, the God particle.
The God part.
That we, by the way, didn't even know existed till that happened at CERN, I believe.
But that was part of it, was that they actually confirmed that that is what keeps everything with mass from reaching.
Right. So therefore, if ET is real, how is he even going to violate those laws of physics? It's an actual law. It's like, okay, Paul and I went and robbed a liquor store down the road. Well, we broke what? The law. The judge isn't going to care that we said, well, I mean, we just thought we would violate this law. No, there's a consequence there. You can't break that law of physics. That was great. Glad you brought that up, Rob. I actually forgot about that. So established that nothing mass can reach or exceed the speed of light. Energy requirements increase toward infinity as velocity approaches light speed. Really think about that. Has anybody actually stopped to think about infinity? Actually really stopped and think about it? Like really tried to grasp eternity, infinity?
All right.
I have too. I've laid awake many times in the past couple of months just thinking about it, trying to understand how I can quantify that in my mind. You can't. So people that believe this, they've never actually really stopped and asked these questions. Where are you even getting the energy from?
I think a good thing, because nobody even understands energy in itself.
No.
Like, think about running. The fastest that any human can run is probably what, 20 some odd
I
miles an
think it
hour?
was 28 miles per
Yeah, it
hour.
was something like that.
28? Was that who you said?
I think it was
probably?
Usain Bolt.
Yeah, that is it.
Alright, so you're sprinting as fast as you possibly can. And you maybe can get to like, what, 15?
Yeah, right.
16 miles an
For a few
hour?
steps, yeah.
Yeah, for like 10 steps.
Right.
And that's using as like everything you have. That's essentially the same. That's how you can think about
Right, that's a great
requirement.
point.
Right.
Like it literally takes everything you got just to go 15 miles an hour.
Well, and then the energy requirements increase toward infinity. What does that mean? Like there's no end to it.
What it means is there's not enough energy to go that fast.
There's not.
Right.
Like, so when people give me that argument, like, well, they're using different physics. Okay, explain that.
Mm-hmm. Right.
We know there's only so much energy in the universe itself, and I don't mean in a metaphysical way. The universe, I have to clarify in today's day and age. I mean the actual physical universe, where the planets and the stars, the galaxies are. There is literally not enough energy to even atomic energy couldn't even touch that. It's not enough.
You know what else is crazy is because people probably bring up like gravitational slingshots
Right.
and stuff like that.
And they do.
Do you know that
Wormholes
when
as
you
well.
do a gravity slingshot, so you use the energy of the body, whatever celestial body to get going faster, you're actually robbing energy from the motion of that planetary body.
Okay.
That's insane. You
Yeah, that
actually
is
pull,
crazy.
you make, like, so if we did a gravity shot around the moon, you would
Right.
make the moon go slower from doing so.
Okay,
Yeah.
see,
Because of the energy transfer.
Right, but it's such a small
It's such a
amount.
small
Right.
amount that
Right.
you
You wouldn't be able to.
But in order to go up, if you did gravity slingshots enough
Yeah.
to go up to light speed, you would probably, the moon would just stop. Or whatever other
Right,
gravity
right,
shot
for
would
that,
happen.
yeah.
Like,
Well,
everything would just have to stop in place for you to make,
Yeah.
to get that energy to go.
goes back to basic, what we used to learn in science. Matter can't be destroyed,
It can either be created nor destroyed.
huh?
Matter can either be created
Created
nor
or
destroyed.
destroyed. But with energy, see, energy is, according to this, there's a limited amount of energy in the universe.
Yeah.
Okay? That means if you're expending energy here to increase energy over here, that's not being refilled.
Right.
It's moving. So it's kind of like matter.
Yeah.
Can't be destroyed, but you can't add more to it.
Right.
And I know this is probably getting a little bit sciencey, but I have a point here because the point is, you know, again, to reiterate, I want to give you all some of the tools here to combat this line of thinking because this is getting big. Obama's saying this. Trump is saying he's declassifying them. Spielberg's doing think about the timing of that alone. He hasn't done a movie in how many years? A couple of years. And all of a sudden he's doing one called Damn Disclosure. And then a couple of months it comes out before Trump says he's going to declassify all this. So what we're going into this because something's going to happen. They very well could come out and say, we have crafts, we have bodies, and they're going to look at you, your neighbor, your school, your students, whatever, as a throwback to like the 1600s. You know, you might as well be believing there's a pot of gold at the end of a rainbow. They're going to look at you like that you're just believing fairy tales and all this. And that's why I believe that this is part of the coming great deception. I just don't see anything else that it could be. I really don't. So that's why I wanted to give you all just some of this so you can actually get this in your mind, because I've never actually heard anybody even teach this on this. They just tell me why from a theological standpoint. But that's not really going to cut it for the unbeliever. You can beat them at their own game. Use science. Okay, great. You want to debate it from science? Well, here's the math. Explain this. So I think that's interesting. And this is interesting. So the energy requirements increase toward infinity as velocity approaches light speed. This created a fundamental relativistic barrier. How many of y'all heard the theory of relativity? All right, Robbie can probably even explain it better than me.
I don't think so.
It's if we were if Paul and I were capable of traveling at light speed and we got to go save the world from some catastrophe in a Hollywood movie. Okay, and let's say that's possible. We get there, it takes us, we go into hypersleep, we're gone for, I don't know, it takes us 100 years to get wherever we gotta go. Well, by the time our 100 years there could be 1,000,000 here. Y'all would be long gone, the earth would be whatever, we'd show up in heaven and be like, where have y'all been? Like, you know, so it just doesn't work. Like, I mean, it's just when you really think about it, that when they said their origins was what I never can say it, the pronounce it right.
What? Oh, that star you said.
I can never pronounce it
I
right.
forget what it was called.
The
with a K or something.
Yeah, the recta. Anyway, I'll look it back up in a minute. But you know, as we didn't have a lot of the layman person didn't have the internet and all that, well, they just believed that. They were like, oh, okay. Well, when you really start to think about the amount of energy it would take for some type of being to get here, and not to mention, we're talking in some instances from that particular star system, it was millions of years traveling at the speed of light.
No, didn't you say it was a?
Oh, it was close to 1 billion, I think, or 42 billion years.
Stupid.
It was just some astronomical number. And I hope we can really get into that next week, is where it really gets interesting, how they have continually changed their narrative, their words. As man's technology grew, it got closer, then it got closer, and then it was like, well, we're from here, or anyway. So we'll try to get onto this. I know this is probably a little tedious, but so this created a fundamental relativistic barrier. In 1903, Konstantin, it's Russian, Savalsky did the rocket equation. He demonstrated that fuel requirements increase exponentially with velocity. Everybody knows what exponentially means. I mean, it's just like going through the roof with the amount of fuel that we would have to have, or anybody for that matter. Exponentially with velocity. Chemical rockets cannot reach relativistic speeds. Mass ratios become impractical for extreme velocities. So people would say, well, yeah, but they've got advanced technology, but there still would have to have a craft to get on. There is still mass to be, moved through the universe at just, it's impossible amount of energy it would create to even get, fly this paper cup, through there at light speed. Just we don't have the energy for it. It's not even there in the universe. So the 1940s, 1950s was the nuclear physics era. Scientists explored atomic and nuclear propulsion concepts. And I think that's really when, and this is interesting, that 10-year period is really interesting. So the average person probably had never really thought of any kind of ancient or any kind of an extraterrestrial life out there prior to Roswell, which I think was a massive conspiracy by Satan himself. And so that happens, and when was it, 45 or 48?
48.
Or 47, was it 47?
47 or 48?
I think it was 47, but I could be.
All right, so 47, we have the government, somebody leaks information there, saying that they had recovered crafts and bodies, and then bam, then we have Israel becomes a nation a year later. Interesting timing. So by the time you get to 1950, Hollywood was going crazy with these movies.
47, June of 47.
Okay, June of 47. So Hollywood's promoting all this, the invasion of body snatchers and all this, and on and on and on. So the average person would have been pretty familiar. They had the sci-fi comics and all that. The kids that are reading it. So you can see where the 50s is where it really takes off. And that starts to really get into the public consciousness that, oh, maybe there is something out there. Oh, the universe is pretty big. Maybe we're not alone. So my point is, you can see the deception being woven, especially from Roswell on.
Mm-hmm.
And notice the government even, they had even some of the declassified documents, and they were talking about that in 23, talking about, well, we were afraid, well, if that could cause people to abandon their religion and all this, which is exactly what they want to happen. Because they'll show up and they're going to be, part of the whole Antichrist and beast system. So scientists explored atomic and nuclear propulsion concepts, even when nuclear propulsion, and that's even crazy, even with nuclear propulsion, reaching significant fractions of light speed presents enormous engineering and energy challenges. Shielding, radiation, and de-acceleration remain unresolved issues. Again, we never see any of the technology they have claimed to have when they channel these people. If that was the case, why am I paying over $4 a gallon for diesel today? Like that, okay, well, show up and give me something to drive my truck with, or this didn't cost me money, but where are they? They're never there. They're always working in some kind of deception. They only channel certain people, and we're going to get more into that. 1970s to present, the precision stellar distance measurements. This is where it gets interesting. That's it. This right here. So the Betty and Barney Hill case, which we might actually be able to touch on tonight, this is where they said they came from when they abducted them. Now, I do believe these people are being taken somewhere. I absolutely believe that. But what I do not believe is that they're extraterrestrial. I believe they are fallen angels, going back to Genesis chapter 6, verse 4. And then Enoch, I think it was first Enoch 1 through 7. Robbie, look that up. And he talks about that. That backs up the Genesis 6 narrative, that they were the watcher angels came down. And by the way, in the Hebrew, when it says that they took wives, each one of them they chose, that actually was by force. That they were basically like, you're coming with me. And that was when we created the race of giants. That's what I believe is going on now. So I do believe something is happening, but it's not ET. I think it's fallen angelic host. That's out to, and we'll get more into that next week of why I think. But I think there is a hybridizing program coming, and I think that's where Daniel said the final Roman Empire was the beat of iron and clay, and it says that they will not cleave one to another. Jesus says that as the days of Noah were, so shall the coming of the Son of Man be. Well, he was talking to Jewish believers, so they would have known that. They would have known, well, the Nephilim are coming back. That's what I really think is the agenda here, is what's going on. And even more frightening is it's a global deception that's going to come upon everybody. And I hate this. I wish I could get this thing to work. So, back here. So the nearby stars such as Zeta Reticuli measured at 39 light years away. So remember, a light year is how long it takes light to get here. 39
1 year.
In 1 year. So 39 light years away at current spacecraft speeds, this is what we knew back then, e.g. the Voyager travel would take hundreds of thousands of years. Even theoretical high-speed probes would require tens of thousands of years. I do not know why this keeps doing this. It's very irritating.
You got it where time's out too quick. And I know where it is, but take time to show you.
So anyway, you know, you might be saying, well, yeah, but they could have different technologies and that kind of thing. Well, I was just giving you what we know in the laws of physics. Somebody that believes this would have to prove to me how they're breaking those laws of physics. They can't. So, conclusion. Interstellar travel is not forbidden by physics, but with known propulsion systems, it is practically unattainable on human timescales. Now, you got a thing called theoretical physics. Yeah, we can get into that. We're not really going to get into that. Is wormholes possible? Yeah, it probably is. Could be. But not. I don't think at all that's what's going on, because if it was, why would the so-called ETs be constantly changing their origin stories? They would have just said we're interdimensional from the beginning, but they didn't. They did that. They have literally changed their origin stories as the culture changed and as the technology changed. And then by the time we get into the 70s, you're going to see where it really merged right in with the New Age movement. And that right there should tell you everything. We some study right there. That should tell you everything you need to know. But we're going to keep going. Oh, help me out. I got to go to my notes here.
Roberto doesn't know where anything is.
Yeah. Well, at least we're not having streaming problems tonight.
No.
Is any of this making sense, or is this just like boring math stuff?
And you know what, James, I'll say, I have talked to probably 4 people
Miss Jennifer.
that are asking about, hey.
I'm hitting it, y'all.
Ah.
Power
Is it not working?
If it's on low power mode, it will not work. Don't low power.
Turn
Why
off
is it
low power.
on, why is it on low power mode? Probably because my son ran my phone dead. But back to what you were saying, Barbara.
Yeah, I've talked to 4 of my nieces and nephews that have mentioned aliens.
That's what I'm saying.
We're talking like 35-year-olds. I mean, they're talking about it.
Yeah, well, because it gives everybody, it gives them the answer to what's actually, and obviously that's not us. It gives them the answer of everybody's wanting to know, where did we come from? And nobody in their right mind really believes that just space dust was flying around, collided, created all the dimensions, space-time, laws of physics, hung the stars, the solar system works the way it does, and then bam, man just crawled out of some primordial soup that we don't know where that came from, or even how to explain that. And people just think, well, I'm doing more than just going to work, paying taxes, and dying. There's got to be more to this. Well, that's why I believe this is the deception. It's gonna have the answers. And let me find my other notes here, and we will get more into that. Where was I at? Yeah, this should be it. It's kind of annoying to use the phone, but you know what? I don't have to write all that down. I don't write that good, and probably half the time I would be, or write that well, I would be, we need to read it. So, this is what I was really excited to get into, was the topic was claimed ET messages, theological, logical, and contradiction analysis. This is where, to me, it's really interesting. And if you ask your niece and nephew, they probably have never really looked into what these so-called ETs have actually ever said. It's just because that would actually do a little thing, required work. I mean, I have to actually take 10 minutes and Google some stuff. People don't want to do that. And I think why? Because I think part of it is, if they've done what I'm doing, and they really looked at the messaging here, then they're going to be confronted with, oh, wait a second, this is exactly the same lie that was told in the garden, and that does what? That confronts me with, there is an end to my life, there is a hereafter, the judgment for the unbeliever. So it's better to keep that on the periphery and be like, no, it's all right if they propagated us and see this, and then maybe they'll make a way for us to live forever or whatever. It's just, and I know it sounds silly, but that's what people believe. So, well, everybody can see this. Big claim. This started coming around, especially in the late 80s, early 90s. Or actually the 70s really was more, we created humanity. Okay, how? And then Rael was a guy that claimed to have been channeled by these so-called beings. So in the biblical contrast, Genesis 1:27, God created man in his image. That right there is complete opposition to what the Word of God says. And again, I've had people say, well, okay, then who created them? Well, we don't know. Well, it would take less faith for me to believe that God just always was and is and spoke everything into existence than he just randomly chose a galaxy, spoke some kind of beings out there that just happened to just populate us and then just disappeared for 6,000 years
And suddenly come back.
and then suddenly come back. It's ridiculous. But
Read that again, what they say.
so so this was a guy that was claimed to have been channeled by them. We created you scientifically in our laboratories. These are some of the direct quotes from people that have claimed to have been abducted and have claimed to have actual contact with these. And then in Colossians 1:16, by him were all things created. Does it say anywhere in the Bible that God created us in the laboratory? No.
No.
So, scientists like to talk about Dr. Michikaku being one, they like to throw around that term, the aether of the universe. And they don't really know what it is. They think it's some type of skeletal fabric that holds the universe together. And I was like, well, if you read right here, Colossians 1:16, by him all things were created, and by him what? All things consist. He's the aether they're trying to figure out. God spoke it into existence. He holds it all together. So the conflict, so the source of creation authority is reassigned from God to what? Advanced beings. Are advanced beings going to hold you accountable at the end of your life for anything you have done? No. Nowhere. In fact, they've never said any of that.
No, because then you're just a science experiment.
Right.
Be observed.
Exactly. So this is where it gets interesting too. So the claim, humanity must evolve spiritually to ascend.
What was the sentence before that?
Oh, did I miss that one? Oh, sorry. Conflict. So the source of creation authority is reassigned from God to advanced beings. And the claim, and this is another one, and you'll see them over and over, the same message, humanity must evolve spiritually to ascend. Okay. Well, what did Satan say in the garden? To Adam, to Eve.
You could be like God.
Yeah, he said, if you eat, he said, God doesn't want you to eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, for the day you do, your eyes will be open and you will be like unto gods.
You'll be like God. You'll be as God.
You'll be as God. It's the same, it is literally the same lie. When you go down and start looking at all these people who claim to have been abducted and things, it all goes back to that. They'll use terms like finding, we're going to lead you to your divine self. We're going to lead you to your higher consciousness. They love that one. They love that term because it just sounds good. It sounds scientific, I guess, to them. Yeah, this is a big one that's been coming around actually here pretty recently is you're ascending to the fifth dimension. Notice how, that's another big point I want to make. Notice how cryptic this is. What does that even mean? You're ascending to the fifth dimension. They don't ever tell you. Whenever they give any kind of prophecies or anything, they've never happened. They predicted nuclear war now for 40 years. It hasn't happened. They started that after World War II. That didn't happen. Then they changed tactics, which we're going to get into, is about protecting
So it's
your
a common modern
Right.
message.
And the New Age movement loves that, the fifth dimensions, they love talking about that, ascending into your higher conscious being, vibrating into the universe. See, they love all this, but...
There was a group in the 70s called the Fifth Dimension, and they had a song. Y'all remember that?
Yes, I do.
Yeah,
The
that's...
Age of Aquarius.
Age of Aquarius, yeah.
Which is probably where they got a lot of this influence from, because the 70s was big for the whole ET thing, especially because we had the special effects. We had all that coming around. Gosh, you had Alien come out in 78, 79. So they say you're ascending to the fifth dimension. It's always these cryptic messages that most people don't understand. So they can just kind of throw that out there, and then people do what? They start building religions around it. They start formulating all these weird metaphysical ideas. Does any of that point you towards a cross at all?
No.
In fact, it does the exact opposite. Right there, you are ascending to the fifth dimension. Notice the emphasis whenever they tell anybody, it's always on them, on you. You becoming divine, you ascending to the fifth dimension, you reaching your higher consciousness, you evolving spirit. Where is the cross in any of that messaging? Nowhere. Zero zip, not it. It's never mentioned. If they do mention Jesus, they'll say he was an ascended master, or there have been times, and I've read some accounts where they said that they came in the Christ spirit. That's how deceptive they are. It could have been somebody maybe been in church all their life, never has really been saved, but they heard Christ's Spirit. Okay, that must be good. So we'll get into that. So Ephesians 2:8-9 says salvation is by grace through faith. And then John 14:6, Christ is the only way. So there is no, we're ascending into some fifth dimension, okay? And if that's the case, well then who created the fifth dimension? Back to that logic. Who created you? You know, why are you created even better than me to get me anywhere when you have, then obviously you have to be created. See, that nobody asked these questions. So again, right here, ascension through self-evolution versus redemption through Christ. That right there in a nutshell, folks, is the New Age movement. I just saved you 20 years of boring research. If you want to know anything about Satanism, Luciferianism, whatever you want to call it, Order of Nine Angles, the new sacred job, that's it. That's all it is.
Honestly, every other religion in the world is that right there.
Yes, that's a great point.
Self-evolution.
Now, and that's a great point. And look at, let's use Islam again, for example. You're dealing with serious people. So whatever this deception is, and there have been messages I read, and I might have forgot to put them on here, where they had specifically said that Allah was one of them, was an ascended master. That he was from another dimension where they are.
Christ was an ascended.
Christ was an ascended master. They will be that. They'll be the final Maitreya. By the way, the Buddhists are looking for the final Maitreya. They're waiting on him. The Muslims are waiting for the final Imam. And then what? We're waiting for the God-man himself, the real God, the living God, the Lord himself to come back in the rapture. They are going to be the Buddha to the Buddhists. They're going to be the Maitreya to the Hindus, the Imam, the final Imam to the Muslims. They're going to be all that. They are going to be all that. So when you really start to trace this down, that makes sense. You can see the deception forming. They will have the answer. Like LA always says, when we go up, they show up. And that may be the case, or it could be some kind of like Trump saying, we're on the precipice of something big about to happen. So my whole point with this study was y'all need to be ready to decide what you believe. Because if they were to roll some type of tape and they prove it's not AI, and they show some no-name general in the back rooms of the Pentagon interviewing one of these things, and he's saying, well, yeah, Jesus was one of us, Muhammad was one of us, whatever. How many people that have never really been saved would see something like that and believe that? And they say, we're the seeders and we're the progenitors of mankind. We realized we needed to intervene because y'all are on the verge of a world war and we're here to stop it. We're here to lead everybody to their evolutionary state, their higher conscious being. And who knows how crazy you get. Maybe they have a cure for cancer. And people start going, oh, wow, that's it. And then they're going to look at us like, I'm telling you, like we believe in fairies, and people laughing and say, oh, you waiting for Santa Claus too? And it's like, I'm telling you, something's our own president. I don't think y'all got to grasp the severity of that. Mm-hmm. Our own sitting president is even admitting this is going on. Now, we know it's not alien. I do not believe it is alien at all. In fact, I believe Genesis 6 and Enoch 1 proves that. Enoch says exactly what Genesis did. He just maybe gets in a little bit further detail about what was going on. This is nothing new. This is the program. This is the deception here. So notice this, and then they say the ascension through self-evolution versus redemption through Christ, and the claim, we cannot interfere. Why not? Does nobody ever stop to ask? They sit here and come in secret, take people out of the home. Notice it's always at nighttime when a lot of these abductions happen. It's never during the day. And then they'll say things like, well, you're the chosen. Okay, we've got over 2 million people died in the Russian-Ukraine war. Where are they at? They say they care. They're benevolent. They're here to lead us to our higher state. Well, where are they then? You got people dying in famines right now in Africa. We got a massive conflict in Russia and Ukraine. How many people is it up to now? It was over 2 million.
Is it that much?
I think it's close to 2 million now.
I can believe that.
So notice they say all this, and then they'll preach this universal message, it's all love, but yet they never show up to do anything. And then they say, well, we can't interfere. They're interesting, though, that they say they can't. So this was from Ashtar Messages. That was the name of whatever this being was. To George Van Tassel, we cannot interfere with your free will. Biblical contrast, angel and
Let me make a statement
Sure.
on that. That may be one truth, that may be the only time they tell it.
I actually was gonna say that, you beat me to it, I think you're right, they can't. Yeah, deception, like you still have to make the choice to believe something, and that's true, that may be why they, that's a great point, and I was
Because
thinking
think
that,
about this, the angels had a free will.
yeah, they did,
All the angelic hosts were made with a free will, just as human beings. God will not usurp the free will of intelligent beings.
no, I agree,
He won't usurp the free will of humanity any more than he would usurp the free will of the fallen angels as well as all angels.
right,
But man, just like the angels, have a free will, but they still have to answer
to God himself.
to God himself.
I agree. And then notice angels in scripture, I thought this was interesting. There's many times they intervened. They came to Daniel. They contended for the body of Moses. Michael did over to Satan himself and rebuked him. So they did intervene. But notice the angels in scripture, do they ever come anywhere? Yes, they did warn the wise men and things like that in a dream. But when it was anything beyond the personal level, something that was meant like to Lot and his family, they didn't come, in the middle of the night and give him some kind of weird cryptic message. They literally showed up in front of all the people at Sodom and Gomorrah and said, you need to leave. God's going to destroy it. It wasn't this weird cryptic message, that you don't even like, what are you even talking about? I need to go to 7-Eleven. What are you talking about? It was like, yo, you need to get out of here. So, and look at this. They deliver messages publicly and they protect and execute judgment at times. They have. The thing with the aliens, again, over and over and over again, it's always at night. It's always in secret. It's always very vague, cryptic messages. Well, if I do things that sound semi-prophetic, and maybe, okay, they know, because I believe fallen angels. Sure, I don't think they know exactly what God's timeline is. I think they know their time is short. And maybe they could say some things that sound cryptic because they're like, okay, well, maybe, we know the Prince of Persia mentioned Daniel. We know he's doing this. Well, let's make a little prophecy there. There's going to be a fire in Manhattan at 5 a.m. Monday morning or something. And
That's too specific.
That's too specific. It'd be more vague.
Light in the burrows and the dark.
Right, and it's always some kind of vague, cryptic message. Always. Why? Because it insulates them. Because then it's so vague, you can't really disprove it when it didn't happen because half the people don't even know what it's even talking about. Because why? They're liars. That's what they do. They lie. They sow seeds of deception. Now, that's interesting. They said they can't interfere, but the angel shut the lion's mouth for Daniel. Physically, the angel came out. The angel frees Peter from prison. So the conflict, so biblical beings act decisively according to who? God's will. Contact entities claim restraint while still meddling selectively. Notice that. They say they can't intervene, but yet they're taking people out of their homes. And well, you can't have it. There's a big contradiction there. So, I think that's a train of thought that most people have never really tracked down. They say they can't do anything. Well, we can't violate your free will, but yeah, we're going to take you out of your bedroom in the middle of the night and, suck you up in our spaceship and do weird tests on you. But we can't really intervene. When you start really looking at the cases and listen to what they say, they're falling on their own sword, in my opinion. They're telling you they're liars. Barbara, you getting anything out of this?
Yeah, I am,
Okay.
but I think that's against your free will, taking you out of your
Yeah.
bedroom at night.
And I think there has been a lot of, there is.
Well, it is.
It is.
It is, because I guess I should have clarified myself. God never usurps the free will.
Right.
He didn't do it with the angels, doesn't do it with man. But the enemy always will override your will. He'll always do things. The only will the enemy cannot override is the will that's swallowed up, and I'm talking about a believer's will, that's swallowed up in God's will.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And there's been many studies where people have been claimed to have been abducted. In fact, it happened to me. I told y'all that. Did I tell y'all that last week? And there's been many. I remember LA was talking to a guy, was not even saved at the time. He got saved after this. Was laying in bed. Was 3. And notice, I noticed a correlation there. Well, a lot of these people, they claim to be abducted. When they look at the clock, it's 3:33 a.m.
The 3 a.m. is the witching hour.
Yep, and the 33 is an occult number. Well, it's been hijacked by
It's 3 a.m.
Well, cause
But-
isn't that the,
Darkest part of.
well, I was gonna say, what, isn't the whole reason behind that, because Christ was supposedly crucified at 3 p.m.?
PM, yeah, you're right.
He
I
gave
think
up,
you're right,
he
yeah.
gave up the ghost at 3 p.m.
See, and that's interesting,
That's the-
and you're right, a lot of times it's 3 a.m., and one guy said he was, literally could see his body, same thing with me, and he was being sucked through the window, and he remembered singing Jesus Loves Me in Sunday school at like 6 years old, and said that was the only thing he needed to do was start saying Jesus loves me, this I know. He said just instinctively it came out of him. Why? Because he knew in his heart that had authority to break whatever this was demonic. That right there should tell you it's demonic. If they were just ET, well then that really, they'd be like, hey Jeff, hey sorry, we didn't mean to frighten you.
Yeah. Why do you keep saying this Jesus?
Well, who is this?
Yeah,
Who is this
Jesus?
Jesus?
See, if what they say is true, and Jesus was one of them, well,
Right.
why suddenly listen to Jesus? He's no different than us. It's
Yeah.
because Jesus is the one who's Lord of Lords and King.
Yes,
And they know that.
And many people talked about it, said it stopped it, and some people did get saved after that. Dr. David Jacobs even talked about it with LA and said that he didn't understand why. He even brought it up on another podcast, so even David Jacobs brought it up himself and was even like, you know, I don't have the answer for that, why calling out to Jesus would stop this, and I'm like, David, because it's demonic.
I don't know how he doesn't get it.
I don't know how he did.
I think to a point, I think he does get it, but he's afraid. Because then it confronts me with what do I do with the man Jesus Christ?
Yeah, I think you're right.
Because that means that I am going to give an account.
Yes.
I will stand and be accounted for. And man wants to do what? He just wants to live unto himself. He wants nobody in their right mind to believe that hell is actually a physical, real place of burning torment would say, you know what, man, I can't wait till Monday morning, I'm blowing my brains out and going there. Nobody in their right mind will believe that.
No.
So they'll do things like, this is a big thing in the church, I know we're digressing for a second, but oh, hell is just separation from God. Notice how much of a cheap cop-out that is. That can be like, yeah, it's cool, I can do whatever I want if I'm just separated from the Lord forever, who cares? I don't know him anyway. It's going to be way beyond that, dude. You're going to be in literal, total darkness, burning. I try to go put your hand in a campfire and see how long that lasts. And imagine being there by yourself in total blackness, so black, the flames can't even provide any comfort or light at all. You know, so there again, they're confronted with their own sin,
Well,
with their own
and there's something else. In hell, there's no presence of God.
none, zero.
You could be in the most remote part of the earth, in a prison, and it'd be pitch dark, and God still be there with you.
Darn, sorry, it's right back.
And hell's not that way.
No, none at all. So to answer Robbie, your point with Dr. David Jacobs, if anybody's interested, he's got some interesting stuff. I would say, filter everything that you listen to with him talk about through a biblical paradigm. And if you do that, it actually makes more sense. But anyway, so conflicts. Where were we at?
Claims. The claim.
Oh, the claim. So the claim, the secret knowledge to the chosen. Can anyone point me out in a scripture where Jesus specifically said, this is only for you, the chosen one, nobody else, to keep it secret? No. In fact, it was the exact opposite. He said, go share the gospel through what? The entire world. Make disciples of all the nations. Nowhere did he go to Josh and say, you know what, Josh, I got this thing, a revelation for you. I don't want you to say anything. Don't write it down. Just get a few little cryptic clues out there on the back, servers of the internet somewhere. No, it was always the call goes out to everyone. Notice they will do that and they'll say, you're the initiated. You're the chosen. Well, everybody, God says we're all chosen. He loves us all. He wants everybody to be in fellowship with him. It wasn't, okay, I'm going to pick Josh, Ed and Jennifer, and skip James and Amber and John. No, it's not. But they do that by their own accord. So this is a pattern across the whole contact history.
And what do you mean by contact? Explain.
By actual people claiming to have been either, i.e., abducted by aliens,
Yes.
or channeled them.
Yeah,
And I'm going to have you, and it's interesting. If you look at a majority of cases I've looked at of people that have claimed to have been abducted or contacted AK channeling, every single one of them was into the occult to some point. Not one born-again, spirit-filled Christian could I find out that was channeling anything.
no.
Because they wouldn't even waste their time with that. So the pattern across contact history, private encounters, which we've already talked about, mainly they happen at night. Hidden revelations, of course, only to the initiated. And then elite intermediaries. How many times have we seen that with these, and we're going to get into Heaven's Gate Call is a great example. Remember that guy claimed to have been chosen by them, that he was given the secret message that they had to leave Earth, and that he was their chosen intermediary between them. Notice the parallel here. It's a false Christ. Notice they're saying we're the progenitor. He is like the son, and y'all are going to be his disciples, and he's going to. When you start to see the pattern overlaid, the counterfeiting that Satan does, it makes a lot of sense. You're like, oh my gosh, but see, those people didn't know the word, and that guy started that. I believe I remember I listened to a podcast to him the other day. I believe he came out of Jehovah's Witness, by the way, and rebelled against that. You remember that, Josh? You and I are old enough to remember. Remember they were wearing the black Nikes. They were all dressed the same.
Well,
and
he came out of a false paradigm.
yeah, he came out of a false
He came
paradigm.
out of Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yeah.
Don't know Christ.
Yeah, and that's what he claimed. He claimed that he was chosen by them and to go warn, and he started doing all this teaching, was channeling all these messages from these so-called ETs, that there was a catastrophic event coming and that they had to leave Earth, and that they told him.
You're talking about the cult from San Diego, right?
Yeah, it was a Heaven's Gate cult.
Notice there was something that was, it always struck me, was their clothing had a lot of triangles. It was triangles,
Yeah.
which is, triangles is big in
The
esoteric.
Philosopher's Stone.
Yes, and in the occult.
Yeah, well, the Illuminati, then you had the Philosopher's Stone, which they would draw it, and in ancient alchemy, they would, if they could do so many, like the Abramelin working ritual for being one, which goes all the way back to Abraham of Worms, and they could conjure a demonic spirit and they could imprison him within the Philosopher's Stone and tell it to go do things, and maybe they could. That's why the Bible specifically forbade sorcery.
Yeah.
In fact, Paul even goes on and says that no sorcerer will inherit the kingdom of God. Anyway,
Bible.
yeah. So 1 John 1, test the spirits. How do we do that? John tells us in John 4:1, he says what? Any spirit that comes to you denying that Jesus Christ came in the flesh is what? Not of God. I don't care if one beamed down right here in a robe of white, the first thing after I recovered from shock off the floor would be like, okay, did Jesus Christ come in the flesh? And then if he said no, then I hope we all rebuke it out of here. But if it did, it said, yes, he did come in the flesh, and I got to tell you something, I was detained, just like I was with Daniel, and I got to tell you this message. Whatever, that's how we test the spirits. Because people have asked me, well, how do we test the spirits? They are giving messages. And notice whenever Jesus is brought in, it's never he came in the flesh. It was always Christ consciousness, Christ spirit. They'll say in the essence of Christ, but they never say he came in the flesh and died in the flesh. Galatians 1:8 said, chapter 1 verse 8 says, even an angel preaching another gospel is accursed. Paul said, if him or any other angel preach anything other than Jesus Christ and him crucified, let them be accursed. That is serious. That accursed meant what? Damnation.
Yeah.
Damnation of soul and hell. So, John, what time we got? Oh man, we're done. Okay, well we'll
We'll finish that. Revelation.
where was that?
Biblical revelation.
Oh, so the biblical revelation is like we already talked about. It's public, and notice it's testable. Remember when Jesus came back before he ascended? Remember he told Thomas, he said, "Come here and touch me." But he said, "Look, put your hands in the nail prints of my side, the spear on my side." Notice it wasn't this ethereal weird body. He was floating around giving these cryptic messages like Casper the Ghost. He physically showed up and then asked them if they had something to eat because he was hungry. It was testable. They could physically touch him. And it's consistent throughout the entire Bible. From Genesis on, what is the central thing? Y'all been going to your church here long enough. Y'all should know this.
Redemption.
Redemption of man, not redemption of man, the angels, and some other race out there.
No, it's man only.
It was man only. Now, why God chose to only redeem man, I don't know. If I knew that, I would
I want to just throw this out
be.
there.
Sure.
Just for argument's sake, if there's extraterrestrials, I don't believe it. Not because I don't want to, I believe the Bible's clear on it. They're still under the judgment of God. Now, why would that be?
Because the whole universe was
Because the
plunged
whole
into sin.
universe, when Satan fell, he plunged the entire universe. That's all the trillions of planets, everything has come under judgment.
And notice the Bible says that he will create a new heaven and a new earth. That literally means in the Greek the entire universe is recreated. Why? Because sin even if we could even go to the farthest reaches of the galaxies, if that were possible, sin still corrupted that.
Yeah.
Sin still corrupted that. So I know this was probably, well, most churches are not talking anything about this, but I hope this, for anybody watching online, really go back and watch this. Listen to what I've said. If you're struggling and thinking, well, maybe this is a possibility, look at what they've said out of their own mouth. The people that look at the message. Look at what they've said out of their own mouth.
And what are you getting into next week?
So we're going to get into, gosh, I can't even remember. I can't even believe that. I thought we'd really fly through this. Where was I at? So section 2, next week we'll do this. I think we can wrap this up. It'll be internal contradictions between ET messages. And here's where things get logically unstable, which is really interesting. And then you can see here all the origin contradictions.
Abduction interviews.
Well, we can do that too next week. In fact, maybe we'll do that.
I mean, is that part of the stuff?
Yeah, because we kind of already got into I wanted to touch base next week on the decades that the origin stories continually started changing. Yeah. It was like, they're like, oh, they figured this out about physics and time travel. All right, tell them we're from another dimension. So we'll get to that, and then we'll get more into what the messages have said to the so-called people that have been
abducted. We're
abducted.
picking up next week.
We were going to pick up, what was the title? I can't remember what I titled. Yeah, section 2, internal contradictions between ET messages. So there's contradictions in their own messaging, which I find interesting.
Hey, James.
Ma'am.
Just something that came to my mind, it's not, but when you were talking about hell, anyway, I read Corrie ten Boom, you know who that is?
Yeah.
Right, that was in the concentration camps with the Jewish thing, that, with the Jews and all that. Anyway, it just came to my mind when you were talking about hell, because she's talking about with her first several months in prison, she wasn't in the concentration camp, she was in solitary confinement at a prison. And she said the most horrible thing she ever experienced in her life was that solitary confinement, where she had nobody to talk to. She was treated poorly by the guards. I mean, she said everybody was unkind. And she said she had never suffered. When she went to the concentration camp, it was actually better than when she was in the prison in solitary confinement. And I just started thinking really deeply about that, how badly that affected her being alone. And so I'm thinking about hell. Not only will I think there'll be torment, right? But you're going to be alone.
I think you'll be alone too. You won't even have the comfort of knowing somebody's right next to you going through the same thing. You will be completely alone.
And she said it was horrible. That was and I thought, to go through a concentration camp, all you suffer, and her worst part was being alone.
Yeah, I agree. Well, here, I'm going to close this out with a word of prayer. Do you guys like this? Y'all get anything out of this? Am I giving you some tools to combat this narrative here? Because this is a big thing coming. And, just throwing the Bible at your neighbor and saying, well, that's what the Bible says. That's not going to be enough. That's not going to be enough. So if y'all want this printed out, I can get some printouts. Maybe that'd even be good, because this is a ton of information. But I'm going to get us out of here. Father, we just come to you in prayer, Lord. We just thank you for this night. Thank you for just letting